also from Groningen, and he was going to talk about large vibrational parity violation in chiral carbon tetrahedral cations. Cool.
Tes. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for the organizer for letting me present here. And my name is Eduardus. I'm a PhD student of Anastasia Burchevsky. Today, I'm going to present you about my project about large parity violation in chiral carbon tetrahedral cations. So I'll start with my introduction. So, which is chiral molecule. And a chiral molecule is a type of molecule that has right-handed configuration, and it always have its mirror image, which is left-handed configurations. And these two configuration is connected by a mirror symmetry, which is called parity symmetry in physics. And these two pair of configuration is called enantiomer pair in chemistry. And this chiral molecule has a broad application, and the biggest application is in pharmaceutical industry. And it was all started in this pair of enantiomer of thalidomide, which have a completely different effect one to another, which back then caused a very huge disaster called thalidomide catastrophe that happened in late 1950s until late 1960s. And afterwards, they are heavily studied. And to this day, there is still a question regarding to predominance in chiral molecule. As we know that DNA, the building block of lives, is almost 100% composed by left-handed amino acids, almost none composed of right-handed one. And this problem is called biohomochirality. And there is one hypothesis that tries to explain this biohomochirality. Basically, if we have two enantiomer pair of amino acids, left-handed and right-handed, and if we see the energy level of left-handed one, because of parity symmetry, it will have the same energy in the right-handed enantiomer. But chiral molecule is composed by a lot of particles like electron and quarks, which basically interact with Z0 boson, which widely known to violate parity. And because of parity violation in chiral molecule, the energy level will be shifted. So there will be an energy difference between the two enantiomers, a very small 10 to the minus 18 atomic unit in this type of molecule. So that maybe the left-handed amino acid is thermodynamically favorable. And therefore, we need to measure this effect. However, this is not yet detected. That's why it's come to my project. So basically, my project is that if the experimental laboratory wants to measure right-handed molecular vibrational spectra and compare it with the left-handed one, the spectra should be shifted because of parity violation. And my job is to look for a candidate molecule with measurable amount of frequency shift. And there will always be a question to me, why do we even need theoretical predictions? Well, the answer comes back to the previous attempt to measure this parity violation in chiral molecule. There were wants to measure it using vibrational laser with 8 Hz of frequency shift precision. And the cost of this experiment is some millions bucks, so not so cheap, but yeah. And they try to use this CF stretching vibrations during that time. And unfortunately, the result is no detection, which is why I'm here. And the theoretical prediction of frequency shift in this vibration is actually only 2 millihertz, which is over 3 order of magnitude smaller compared to the precision. So it's not a really good candidate, so I'm coming to play. And the next question for me is that how to amplify parity violation in chiral molecule? Well, the easiest one is to advantage in this scaling, Z to the power 5. Basically, a molecule containing heavier atoms will have a bigger frequency shift. So basically, we just look for a molecule containing heavier atoms. But there is one more way to amplify parity violation, which is use a cation, because parity violation in an open shell system usually is bigger. And also cations have advantages that it could be trappable and coolable, which yield to better precision. And as Anastasia said, we are working with experimental collaborator. In this case is Yuval Shagam, which try to measure this effect using simple cation with precision about a hertz of frequency shift. But before I talk more about this project, I'll show you a bit how do I get theoretical prediction on frequency shift. So first, I introduce you this the parity Hamiltonian that I'm using. We have weak interaction constant here, and then here we have weak charge that is very specific value for atoms, and then we have Dirac-Harelti mass trick, which is an antisymmetric operator here, and here we have nucleon density. And then to get the frequency shift value, basically it's easy. First we choose a molecule, and then we optimize the geometry, and then we choose a vibration. For example, here we choose water asymmetric stretching vibration. And then we need to get 11 evenly spaced coordinate like this that resembles the vibration, in this case asymmetric stretching. And then we need to do a lot of single point calculations using parity conserving Hamiltonian and parity violating Hamiltonian to get the potential energy and the parity violation energy. And if we plot both of these energies, we will get vibrational energy curve and parity violation energy curve. And from vibrational energy curve, we can get the vibrational wave function for a specific vibration. And for parity violation energy curve, we can get the parity violation energy as a function of internal movement. And then from here, we evaluate this vibrational wave function in respect to the parity violation energy curve. And here we get the frequency shift value for a specific vibration, which what happened? Oops. Is it? We got a bit of technical problem. I could also finish if you want, but okay. Well, yeah. So I get the specific frequency shift for a specific vibration, which will be an important prediction for the experimentalist. And now move to the results. So we were starting with a achiral system, CH2 bromine iodine. This molecule is an achiral molecule because it has CS symmetry. And the question is how to make it chiral. And the simplest way is just to change one of the hydrogen to deuterium. However, under Born-Oppenheimer approximation, this structure will still be achiral. And at equilibrium position, the parity violation energy difference will be exactly 0 because when we evaluate this operator to the electronic wave function, we have the gamma 5 antisymmetric operator here. And in achiral molecule, always have electronic wave function which either symmetric or antisymmetric. And this operation will yield overall antisymmetric function, which integrates to basically 0. That is why this molecule is underestimated by our community. However, when we introduce vibration, for example, this hydrogen wagging vibration, the molecular vibration give chiral structure along the vibration, and the effect in neutral molecule is 0.03 Hertz. And if we go to cation, it's amplified to 1.26 Hertz, which is 2 order of magnitude amplification. And this is a big amplification, and we also publish it in chemical communication. And then we can also see the parity violation frequency shift amplification. If we see all the vibrational mode that available in CHD bromine iodine, we can see here clearly that there is amplification in most cases from neutral to cation. And the most promising one indeed is the hydrogen wagging vibration. And we can also plot this hydrogen wagging vibrational mode by varying the halogen. So in here we can see that if we use heavier halogen, we get a bigger frequency shift. So we have some sort of double amplification. And why do we see amplification in cation state of CH wagging vibration? So to answer that question, we need to see the potential and parity violation energy curve, because frequency difference is basically the integration of this vibrational wave function and parity violation energy curve. So if we see the potential energy curve, both in cation and neutral, the shape is more or less the same. So the vibrational wave function will more or less the same. So this is no problem. But when we see the parity violation energy curve, it's changing from an odd function in neutral to even function in the cation. So that if we integrate, there will be negative value here, cancelled by positive value here. That's why the value is much smaller. But in cation, it's all negative value. So that's why we have big negative value. And then the question is, how could this happen? So it relates to how do we get the parity violation energy, which is evaluating the expectation value of parity violation Hamiltonian. And then this is the whole expression if we solve it. And then here we can get the total PV energy. We can break it down to atomic contribution and furthermore to occupied orbitals contribution. And then from atomic contribution breakdown, we can see here left is for neutral and right is for cation. Black is the total PV curve, and it's mostly contributed by bromine and iodine contribution. And then we will focus more on these two contributions. And this could be explained the effect by this phenomenon. For example, this is 3 moon phases. First is full moon phases, half moon phases, and an eclipse. So this is tightly correlated to the occupied orbital contribution here. So in full moon phase, imagine that we have a full 48 occupied orbital of CHD bromine iodine, but we only considered the 47 orbitals contribution without considering the highest orbital contribution. And we can see here in neutral and cation, both of them behave an even function behavior, and the positive value is basically negligible. And if we compare it to eclipse, where the shadow is covering the moon, we can see that this is like a neutral CHD bromine iodine, where all the orbitals contributing to them. But in half moon, where only half of the shadow covering the moon, it's just like we only consider the inner orbital contribution and only half of the highest orbital contribution, because, well, it loses one of the electron. And then this is for neutral. The even function behavior from inner orbital is cancelled by the highest orbital contribution. And in cation system, the even function behavior is not cancelled because the contribution of highest orbital is halved. And then if we sum up, we have odd function behavior in neutral and even function behavior in cation. That's why it's amplified. And now, how about other carbon tetrahedrals? We can also have several combination using other halogens and hydrogens. And we can see in this plot, cation of carbon tetrahedrals almost reach 1 Hertz of frequency shift, which give experiment more flexibility, and hydrogen weighting in CHD bromine iodine still have the highest frequency shift of all. And now come to my conclusion. So hydrogen weighting of CHD bromine iodine plus is a very promising candidate for PV measurement in the future. And amplification in other carbon tetrahedrals give flexibility for candidate selection. And then finally, Yuval is actually got an ERC to measure this effect. So it's nice to see. Well, happy ending, and thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for this excellent talk. Questions?
Thanks. I have a naive question. What is the expected line width or natural line width of such a transition?
What do you mean by line width?
It can de-excite the vibrational mode, right?
What?
The mode can de-excite. So like, what's the line width you want to measure?
Line width?
From your excitation.
Oh, sorry. I think that I'm not pretty sure. It's depending on the setup of the experiment, but I'm not pretty sure about that.
Other questions? I have a naive one. You said the molecule is not chiral in Born-Oppenheimer approximation. I didn't get why that is.
So if you have CH2 bromine iodine, if you reflect it, it will be get the same molecule. But once you introduce vibration, hydrogen will move much faster compared to deuterium. So if your hydrogen is here and then your deuterium is here, it's becoming chiral because you cannot rotate it. You only have C1 symmetry. You don't have any other symmetry, which is the definition of chiral molecules.
Yeah, but why is it achiral in Born-Oppenheimer approximation?
Because in Born-Oppenheimer approximation, if you optimize the geometry, you will have the same geometry as CH2 bromine iodine and CHD bromine iodine, which still has the CS symmetry. And if you have CS symmetry, that's one of the symmetry that determine molecule is chiral or achiral. And if you have it, then it's still achiral. So yeah.
Then, like, can you improve on this just by climbing the vibrational ladder?
What
Like-
do you mean climbing vibrational ladder? You mean transition to 0 to 2, 0 to 1, or what?
Well, somehow you put more quanta into this H vibration.
Quanta?
Like,
Which one do you mean? This one or which quanta?
Well, I thought the idea is like at equilibrium, it's basically still, you still have this mirror symmetry and you excite the H vibration more, but I mean, you can just increase the amplitude of this vibration, I guess, by climbing the vibrational ladder.
You mean 0 to 2 or overtones or what?
Well, not necessarily. You can just
Yeah, I mean climbing ladders is I think 0 to 1 transition because we have energy levels of vibrational levels, right? What do you mean by climbing
well, I
the
mean, I guess in what yeah, like what is the vibrational quantum number when you're measuring, and
it's
can you
0 to 1, the principle,
it's
because
one, so
yeah, 0
oh,
to 1 because it's the most abundant one, because 0 to 2 it's much smaller in intensity, and then it's almost unmeasurable. That's why we only consider 0 to 1 transition
okay.
usually. So
okay, sorry, I think I was confused. Yeah, I think I
Alright.
got you. Thanks.
it should be the same. If you mean phi equal 3 to phi equal 4, so we have analytic solution to that. And if we have difference of one vibrational state, it will be completely the same. But 0 to 2, it will be twice. And then
Yes. So this was like a little bit of a continuation to Matt's question, because even on Born-Oppenheimer approximation and the ground state vibrational level, essentially there is this correction coming from the Born-Huang term regarding the coupling of the motion of the nuclei to electronic structure, which should be stupidly small, but but this is another source of chirality. So have you studied if this gives something? Or
yeah, we don't consider that, I think, because it will be much smaller effect. I think other effect will be much bigger. For example, we need to treat electron correlation much better. It will give a better effect. And then considering that much of accuracy, I don't think we need that yet, because basically we just need a rough estimation like 30% or 50% roughness in this case, so that they could start the experiment. Maybe order of magnitude precision is enough. And if they after they measure the effect, and then we can always improve the precision. But for now, we cannot really benchmark to anything except we do like solid wave function methods, and that's our comparison. So maybe that's safe for later.
thank you.
Okay, let's thank our speaker and all speakers of the session one more time.